No Mud, No Lotus is a book that I really love. I read this book maybe 5 years ago. It was the first step into understanding my emotions, understanding why I struggled with suffering. Why do we suffer? Why do we go through certain things? Why do things happen to us? And this was a really great interpretation of not separating suffering and happiness, that understanding that they are one. No mud, no lotus. Without going through the mud, a lotus flower can't blossom. Sometimes you have to be surrounded in dirt, surrounded in struggle, surrounded in the rock bottomness of suffering in order to find happiness. They say reality is an interpretation, and so can anything happen. Some things that may annoy you, other people might find joy in. Some things that you strongly dislike, like loud music, might make other people extremely happy. It's all how you think of things. Everything goes back to thought, right? If something bad happens to me, we can plant those seeds of anger, fear, jealousy, distrust, all of those feelings that sink us down to the ground, that sink us down into a dark place, a dark hole, into a muddy situation in our thoughts. That thought alone can increase stress hormones and depreciate the body, depreciate the immune system. Anxiety can increase. Those seeds are harming you physically because you are enduring the suffering. But you could also plant the same seeds like happiness, joy, understanding, sitting in your feelings in general. When you take time to understand how you feel, when you take time to sit in your feelings, it's okay to be sad. Understand it. The thing is to understand your feelings and get to the core root of why you feel that way. The art of transforming suffering into happiness is all about how you think of things. It's all about how you process the lesson, how you process what has happened to you in that moment and your worth as a person. Understanding your self-worth, understanding who you want to be, and being realistic with yourself. Sometimes we lie to ourselves. We try to make ourselves believe that we want something so bad because it gives us this temporary happiness that is fulfilling us in a way that we really don't want to give to ourselves, because we don't want to take the time to love ourselves. We don't want to take the effort into receiving all of those things that we want to give and receive from another to ourselves. And it's also simple, but it's also difficult, because taking the time to give everything to yourself instead of to another, sometimes you suffer. You suffer a little bit because you have to sit and feel and get to know yourself again. You have to understand who you really are and what you want to be today, tomorrow. I think we hold on and we attach ourselves to so many different things that we lose sight of our purpose. We lose sight of our only obligation in life. And when we attach ourselves to certain memories we want to hold on to, it takes away from our present moment. It takes away from truly understanding our blessings for today, right now. And it holds us on to living in the past because we're holding on to certain memories to try and create an outcome that may really be creating resistance. I don't know if you're following me, but this can relate a lot to relationships. We suffer a lot in relationships because sometimes we're forcing something that isn't meant to be forced. Sometimes we're trying to fill voids because we don't want to be alone, or we have an idea of the result we're trying to receive out of something, and we're holding on to the potential of what could come out of this situation. But in reality, if that's not what that present moment is saying, accept what today is giving you and detach yourself from what your outcome is. Now, creating resistance is saying I want something and you're lacking it. So when you lack something and you don't feel like you truly deserve what you have, you're creating your own issues. You're creating issues because you're trying to force things to come about that aren't meant to happen yet. Timing is everything. If it's meant to happen today, it would happen today. If it's meant to happen tomorrow, it will happen tomorrow. But what we cannot do is try to force something to happen. We have to let it come to us. We have to say, if we believe that it's ours already, We set it free, and if it's meant to come back, it will come back. That's how it works. Everything comes full circle. It will come back to you at the perfect season, at the right time. It's hard for us to accept sometimes that what we want is not for us today. That what we're trying to receive may happen a little bit later because we want it so bad right now. And I get it because I'm impatient as fuck. Like, I want my bread tomorrow. I have to keep my energy and my frequency level as high as possible. And the only thing that I can control is my universe. The people that I allow into my universe to keep me at a high frequency level to where my energy is at its best at all times. And if not, then I suffer. Then I suffer, and I plant seeds that cause my mind to bring me down into this dark hole. It has come to a point where I'm so aware of my thoughts that if I allow anything to affect my energy in my world, it is nobody's fault but mine. It is nobody's fault but mine because I chose to interpret my suffering as a bad thing instead of a lesson and something that I was supposed to receive to find joy, happiness, and a greater result in the end. If you always believe that the universe is on your side, there's no bad thing that can happen to you that you'll question. You'll understand that in that moment it's meant to be. In that moment it's making you stronger. In that moment it is teaching you something. Instead of saying, why am I suffering? Ask yourself, what am I learning? What is this teaching me? Is this about my worth? Is this about me? Is this about my inner child? Why am I suffering? Who is suffering inside? Those are questions you need to ask in order to heal. It is important for us to heal ourselves emotionally, mentally, spiritually, physically, in order to grow. If we stopped trying to force and control so many things and actually just see what could happen if we live in uncertainty, see what could happen if we go with the flow and understand that God got us. God got us no matter what. He is the universe. He is omnipresent. He is everywhere. He is in us. And if he's in us, we are capable of limitless things. So what's the problem? Why are we suffering? We're suffering because we don't understand ourselves. We're not taking the time to love all the pieces of ourselves, to heal all the pieces of ourselves, to sit back and ask ourselves, why am I feeling this emotion? Where is this emotion coming from? How can I prevent myself from feeling like this again? Transform it into peace, love, and happiness. I don't know. No Mud, No Lotus. So I'm going to read you guys 2 pages out of No Mud, No Lotus. I just want to elaborate on 2 pages that both suffering and happiness are of an organic nature, which means they are both transitory. They are always changing. The flower, when it wilts, becomes the compost. The compost can help grow a flower again. Happiness is also organic and impermanent by nature. It can become suffering, and suffering can become happiness again. If you look deeply into a flower, you see that a flower is made only of non-flower elements. In that flower, there is a cloud. Of course, we know a cloud isn't a flower. But without a cloud, a flower can't be. If there's no cloud, there's no rain, and no flower can grow. You don't have to be a dreamer to see a cloud floating in a flower. It's really there. Sunlight is also there. Sunlight isn't flower, but without sunlight, no flower is possible. If we continue to look deeply into the flower, we see many other things, like the earth and the minerals. Without them, a flower cannot be. So it's a fact that a flower is made only of non-flower elements. A flower can't be by herself alone. A flower can only interbe with everything else. You can't remove the sunlight, the soil, or the cloud from the flower. Everyone knows we need to have mud for lotuses to grow. The mud doesn't smell so good, but the lotus flower smells very good. If you don't have mud, the lotus won't manifest. You can't grow lotus flowers on marble. Without mud, there can be no lotus. It is possible, of course, to get stuck in the mud of life. It's easy enough to notice mud all over you at times. The hardest thing to practice is not allowing yourself to be overwhelmed by despair. When you're overwhelmed by despair, all you can see is suffering everywhere you look. You feel as if the worst thing is happening to you. But we must remember that suffering is a kind of mud that we need in order to generate joy and happiness. Without suffering, there's no happiness. So we shouldn't discriminate against the mud. We have to learn how to embrace and cradle our own suffering and the suffering of the world with a lot of tenderness. Life can be the mud. We can get stuck in the mud sometimes, and we can let it overwhelm us. We surround us in ways that we literally don't know why the fuck every bad thing is happening to us. Or maybe it was a situation that was so deep, it just dug you down into depression on some other shit. Like, you thinking bad thoughts left and right. You don't want to do shit. You can't eat. You can't sleep. You are suffering for real. Like, that shit can happen. We're human. It happens to people. We all struggle. We've all come from some type of struggle, whether it be real life, like struggle shit from like nothing to something, or like mental, emotional struggles every fucking day. Like, there's no person in this world who hasn't suffered in any type of way, but it's how we interpret suffering that changes the game for us. It's how we endure things and understand why these things happen to us that plants better seeds for our outcome of how we grow as human beings in a healthy way, and can actually project more love into the world instead of projecting bad seeds, projecting hate, projecting any type of negative feeling onto other people. It works like that. It's a domino effect. It's like how you treat people is a reflection of how you feel inside. You search and you seek, you find. You got to look for the answers, but all the answers lie within. And if you're looking for answers externally, you're only creating resistance. You feel me? When you create resistance, you can't manifest. When you have blocks in your energy centers, you can't manifest. You can't receive because you're hurting, you're suffering. You need to heal yourself. Take the time. Get it right. It's worth it. But No Mud, No Lotus by Thich Nhat Hanh. The art of transforming suffering into happiness. And I recommend this book for anybody that is trying to understand why we go through things as humans, why we're suffering, how to transform it, and not treat them as two separate things, but treat them as one, so we can go through our life lessons just a little bit easier, so we can fucking breathe and stop getting anxiety all the damn time. So I recommend that, and I just say all that to say that if you are going through a time and all of these retrogrades going on, we just hopped into the Mercury retrograde till November 3rd. So I know there's a lot of things happening in relationships. There's a lot of endings. There's a lot of new beginnings. There's a lot of restlessness. All of those play into understanding your suffering, your internal suffering. Take the time to be present. Take the time to rest your body. Give yourself time to heal. Read this fucking book and it will help you. Okay? I'm trying to help you niggas. Get your mind right. And stop surrounding yourself in things that can help the seeds of suffering grow. You want to be surrounded by things that plant seeds of happiness for your purpose, for your only obligation, not for somebody else. And always just stay true to that, and remember that you have a choice every single day. And if it ain't happiness, shit, that's your choice. But that's all. I will talk to y'all soon. You know the vibes. Have a good day.